And that was our Dre Clark reporting. Well, the Institute for Criminal Justice Training Reform says there are a number of training flaws in our police departments and restructuring is definitely needed. Randy Shrewsberry, Executive Director of the Institute, is with us now. Randy, good evening and welcome to BNC.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So, Randy, we've watched enough videos to draw our own conclusions. You just saw the stories before. You talk about how we are treated by police. You've got George Floyd and now the Army lieutenant who we showed just moments ago. But we're trying to somehow get to the bottom of all of this, right? This issue keeps happening. What do you think the issue is with the training models currently used in U.S. police departments?
Well, there's kind of a litany of problems inside of police training, but foremost are really just a couple of things. One is that police training just simply isn't long enough, right? So on average, police officers are receiving 6 or 7 months worth of training to cover about 50 topics that has to be condensed in this time. So one of the major topics that police officers work in is use of force or tactical training. Mm-hmm. And despite policing being an incredibly safe profession, right? Less than 50 officers died in the line of duty feloniously last year. They spend about a third of their training around use of force. And even beyond that, one of the issues is that this tactical training is kind of integrated in all other parts of the training as well. So it's in our view, it's the overshadowing tool that police officers are given instead of things like de-escalation, communications, community relations, and those kinds of things.
And so, Randy, when you think back to when you first started your career and really taking a close look at police brutality as it is, how much has changed in terms of training and what form of training is needed the most to help prevent these cases?
Well, so I went to my first academy over 30 years ago, mm-hmm. and I would say this outside of a increase in hours, which is actually very, very modest, nothing has really changed. And so that's one major problem. If you think about nearly every other profession, you couldn't imagine that medicine wouldn't change how they train over 30-year period. The answer to how do we prevent this is a mix between training and policy. So I want to be clear that things like implicit bias training, we don't really have any evidence that works. Mm-hmm. We don't know by expanding curriculum dramatically if that would work because nowhere has it been done in the United States. But what we do know is that refocusing away from militarized training, or what in policing they call stress style training, tends to lower instances of use of force. I do believe that having strong curriculum that is centered around community policing, or maybe not the community policing model as it is, but having something that prioritizes policing to give alternatives other than arrest. And then the final thing is that it's important is that we examine about how do we reduce the thumbprint, so to speak, of policing in our society. So the less interactions that we have certainly will reduce the chances of use of force instances such as these.
And what about racial prejudice, whether conscious or unintended, plays a role in police-involved shootings? Are police departments providing applicants with proper pre-hire assessments before they enter the department?
No, not that I'm aware of. And unfortunately, one of the things that I'm afraid that we're doing is that we're jumping on to programs such as implicit bias training. My view is that I think that anytime that we're aware of our human behavior or our biases, that could have some effect. But the NYPD released their preliminary report late last year that showed that on paper officers are aware of biases, but when it comes to the practical application in the field, that there isn't any. Again, our issue, what we feel like is that, yes, there could be a great deal of emphasis that's placed on biases, or one of the things that I feel like the LAPD has done very well recently is dedicate some of their curriculum to looking at the historical impact that policing has had on Black and brown communities. I think if they have enough time to get into the nuance of policing in America, that could have some better outcomes as well.
Well, Randy, we know your organization does a whole lot of work to help improve those police and community relations, so we want to thank you for your time and thank you for the work that you all are doing as well.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Of course.